And welcome once again to EWTN's Bookmark. I'm Doug Keck, your host. Our special guest is author Donna-Marie Cooper O'Boyle. Two of her works, Catholic Moms Cafe, published by our Sunday Visitor, and Rooted in Love, published by Ave Maria Press. Welcome.
Thank you,
Donna-Marie, it's great to have you here again.
To be here.
And it's great to have seen you a few months back when you were on with Father Mitch, and it's great to know that you've got a mini-series.
Yes.
That's actually based on this book, right? Catholic Moms Cafe.
Same title and similar themes, you know. Just helping the moms in the trenches, all age moms and grandmothers too.
Now the Catholic Moms Cafe here, 5-minute retreats for every day of the year. How did you turn that into a mini-series for EWTN?
Well, I didn't exactly turn that into a mini-series, but it just goes hand in hand with the mini-series.
Okay.
The mini-series delves into topics very pertinent to moms and struggles and challenges and joys. And this is more of a 5-minute retreat that the mom could get her prayer kick-started each day with just, you know, taking those few minutes to read Catholic Moms Cafe.
Who are some of the participants with you that people might know?
in the series?
In the series, right.
Okay, Karen Edmiston,
Okay.
Woodine Koenig-Bricker.
Okay, from OSV, right?
From OSV,
right.
Yes. I'll probably draw a blank.
Lisa.
Yes, Lisa Hendy and Lisa Maladnik.
And Lisa, a lot of people know from the web and from blogging and things like that.
Yes, and
right?
Marge Fenelon.
Okay.
Yeah.
So those are some names people have heard certainly over the years, and
Yes.
brought them to the table. That
Yes.
sounds exciting.
Yeah.
And in a sense, I would almost think the second book we're going to talk about, Rooted in Love on Calling as Catholic Women, in effect, almost like the series combining these two things, right? In some
Right.
ways.
Well, this is for the, you know, the dignity of all Catholic women, and you know, single, married, mothers, and consecrated religious are in the Rooted in Love, and Catholic Moms Cafe is geared to the moms.
Right. You have done some spots for us here on EWTN,
Yes.
right? Little spots.
Everyday blessings for Catholic moms.
And have you gotten good reaction to those?
Oh yes, people have loved them. You know, even prisoners who've written to
You
me.
hear from all kinds of people.
All kinds of people. Yes, they love them, and they even say to their kids, "Shush, shush, Donna-Marie's on. We've got to watch this."
And so when you go out and give speaking engagements and other talks like that, you get feedback from people.
Yes, yes, they do.
So you think that there's really a place for this kind of material for Catholic moms?
Oh, absolutely, yes. In the book and the series, they've been asking for a longer, you know, show so that they can get some more meat and potatoes out of it.
Okay, now this is a 5-minute retreats for every day of the year, and I noticed you dedicated this to a whole series of people, and also dedicated with a grateful heart to our Blessed Mother Mary for mothering us all. Now, clearly, at the heart of Catholicism, there's clearly this love of our Blessed Mother, and we see her in that mothering way.
Right.
But the society doesn't view her so positively in some ways
Right.
anymore, because that's not the right role model for what women should be today.
Right, yeah, because women today, according to the culture, need to be, you know, striving for these crazy, unobtainable levels of perfection, whether it be in her appearance or the decor of her home or her in the workplace. And, you know, so they pretty much drive the woman crazy trying to discern what she should be. And our Blessed Mother, if we could only you know, emulate her beautiful virtues and stay simple and focused and do what our heart is telling us, what God is calling us to do as a mom and as a woman.
Right, so in a lot of ways what we really have to do is get those cacophony of voices from the outside, calm those down, and focus on what God is telling us.
Absolutely, but that's very hard for
especially
the
a
typical
mom who's going.
She's trying to do so much, and sometimes she doesn't even know how she's going to fit that prayer into her life.
Right, and you say that you can do it right at your kitchen table, first thing in the morning as you're having your breakfast. That was important for you to make it something that was very easy for someone to do, fit in their day. Because a lot of trouble is people get started, then they get overwhelmed, and then they feel guilty that they haven't done it, and then they throw it away.
And they don't do it, or they, you know, and they just get so flustered. But if you can just make that time after your morning offering, you know, on your knees by the side of your bed for 30 seconds, 60 seconds, and then sit at the kitchen table and just, even if the kids are all around you, see if you can pick up the book and just...
Right, and you have some of the prayers in here, including the morning offering.
Yes.
Because there may be some people out there who would say,
might
what
not
do you
know.
mean?
Right, what's a morning offering? And it could be in your own words, too. It doesn't have to be formal. It could be, Lord, just take my day and guide me.
Now, you focus this on the 3 theological virtues, faith, hope, and love.
Yes.
Why?
Well, I think those are that beautiful gift of the theological virtues that were given at baptism. But we kind of forget about them throughout our lives, right? Who talks about the faith, hope, and love, and how to increase and develop those virtues in our hearts and souls? So I try to focus on those, because I think a mom lives those virtues. And if I could remind her of them page by page, that wow, you can flex that muscle of faith this month or this day, by just doing this.
Right.
Or hope or love, and just, use those virtues.
You say this book is absolutely not meant to add stress to your day.
Right.
If you miss a day here and there, no worries, pick it up again next chance you have.
Yeah, so that they don't feel like, okay, I didn't do it at the table, forget it, I messed up.
I'm a failure at this too.
Yeah. So,
people-
just throw it in your purse and take it with you, or just leave it on the table and just pick it up. And
Well, we have to think about who's putting that in our head when we say that about ourselves, though.
yeah,
that
exactly.
I'm a failure. Yeah, give it up. It's not worth
Right.
doing. I know Mother Angelica always said, and really, if you read some of the great literature out there and people talk about how to deal with life, it's really living in the present moment.
Right, exactly. Because, the evil one is going to just make us so discouraged, and then that's how people give up their prayer. Once they give up their prayer, they're doomed.
Right. Now you say some reflections will deal with husbands, our other half.
Right.
How do you have a reflection on a book for moms that have to do with husbands?
Well, because being the heart of the home, being that mom of the family, usually there's a husband in the picture. I used to be a single mom for many years, so my heart goes out to single moms, and I do mention in there, and if you don't have a husband, if you are a single mom, maybe your husband died, maybe you had a terrible divorce, this book, will speak to you, and the husband might not be in the picture, but I just think that we need to include the whole family.
Right. Now, you talk about that. Now, the nitty-gritty, as you call it here in the beginning, of kind of the format so that people understand how it is. There are 4 elements to each mini retreat, and they go by day, 365 days, right?
And even an extra for a leap year.
Yeah, I know. Father Mitch, I remember on the show, was quick to point that out. Make sure you got that covered.
Right.
That's what happens when you deal with a Jesuit professor type.
Right.
But so you've got it broken down into, we'll go through it. It's kind of, the acronym is POPS. I don't know whether
I didn't plan that at all.
People could remember POPS.
Yeah.
But the first one is ponder.
Right.
A selected quote pertaining to one of the virtues, faith, hope, or love. Now you have the quote there, right?
Yes, right at the top of the page is the ponder.
Okay.
It could be scriptural, it could be something from a classic poem, it could be from a Mulieris Dignitatem or an apostolic letter, something.
Which is what? That's the letter on the dignity.
On the dignity and vocation for women. I love to use that throughout my work, because I think women forget about their God-given dignity, and we need to unearth it. And I think through prayer and through being reminded of our dignity, we'll understand we are dignified in God's eyes, and not to worry about what the culture is telling us.
Right.
Right?
Isn't it sad that we have to make that defense at this point?
I know, but we just have to do it, right? We're all missionaries, and we need to help one another on this journey.
Now the second phase is offer, a brief meditation offering food for thought.
Right. That offer could be some silly story, something about my kids growing up, something about someone else, just to illustrate a facet of mothering, and then a suggestion as to something to do that day to offer your heart along the lines of that theme of faith,
And that's
hope,
the pray
and love.
part. That's where it goes over to pray with suggested prayers to go along with this.
Yeah, well, the
Wow.
offer, follows that theme.
Everything builds on each other.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Okay, good. And then you have pray,
Pray.
suggested prayers go along with the theme of the day. And then finally, savor,
Right.
a burst of inspiration or a thought to take you through the day. So I noticed on, let's just get specific here, January 1st, for some reason you picked Blessed Mother Teresa of Calcutta. Be faithful in small things, because it is in them that your strength lies. Now you have a connection with Mother Teresa, and you
Yes.
talk about it in all your books, right?
Right. I was blessed to know her for about 10 years, so I can't help but weave her wisdom into what I write. And I thought to start the book off with, letting moms know it's small things with great love. So you don't have to accomplish all these momentous things. It's just, changing that diaper, washing the dishes, holding your child, doing all that motherhood entails, and offering it to God with love. And that's amazing. That's huge in God's eyes, even though people might think, oh, you're just a mom, or what are you doing there? Or you might think that yourself, like, I'm just washing the dishes.
Well, even good people who are family-oriented and faithful people will have a discussion someplace and ask a woman to say, well, what do you do?
Yeah.
My mom and stuff. Well, are you working anywhere?
Yeah. And I'm always quick to say,
What do you mean, are you working anywhere?
one of the most important jobs there is, raising little saints to heaven.
Right.
But you hear that all the time.
Right.
so we have to hold our heads up high and know that God has given us this sublime role in the heart of the home. It's such an important job.
Well, I guess it's funny because the other, you have, you kind of quote a couple of Teresas in here that in the beginning too. One, the Saint Therese prayer, her prayer, and also Saint Teresa of Avila's meditation, which I like. Christ has no body now but yours, no hands, no feet on earth but yours. Yours are the eyes through which Christ looks compassion into the world. And what's interesting with this, again, is that kind of hidden life. You think, here's Therese, right, in a cloister. And how would anybody know about her? But yet God has made her known worldwide. And it's the same thing, this idea that God knows what you're doing. Right? So in that hidden life as a mother, like you're saying, the everyday normal tasks, that's what's really important. It's not important that the world knows about what you're doing.
Not to worry that you're invisible kind of to the world. But these tasks are so beautiful and so important, and if you weren't doing them, who would be? And your children wouldn't be getting that nurturing. And
your children are your legacy. In effect, I mean, that is you carrying on. You want to talk about leaving something behind. What are other people, you know, fame is ephemeral. People, we think about people who were popular 10 or 15 years ago whose names were on everybody's lips for 2 weeks.
And then they're forgotten.
Forgotten later, and you say, well, what is that about?
And those traditions that are passed on through the mom end up being in their children and grandchildren's domestic churches later on. So all of those little, beautiful, loving tasks.
Now, how did you pick on the ponders, okay? Because I figured, well, these are all quotes from saints, or they're things out of the Psalms or out of Scripture, but they're not. In fact, you've got... I don't even think he's a blessed unless you're a Yankee fan. That's Yogi Berra. You've got him on February 8th. It ain't over till it's over. How did you pick out things like those? You know?
Well, I wanted to be interesting and maybe a little fascinating, maybe a little funny too at places like, whoa, that's interesting that, you know, she used that person. But they have a message, you know. I didn't use anyone heretical.
Or controversial.
Or too controversial or anything like that. But scattered throughout, you'll find something like that.
Right. Well, let me ask you, so, I mean, how did you, when you constructed the book, did you first lay out all the ponders by day, or did you have these already and match them up? And outside of a feast day or something very dramatic, did it matter what you put there? Obviously, like on March 25th, you've got something related to the Annunciation. But on other days, in between the ordinary time, so to speak.
Well, I just pray. Every book I write, I just really pray and think and just, you know, start writing. And then I just mapped out sort of a template of the days of the month, and then I looked at the liturgical year, and I looked at maybe, you know, the month of May. I wanted to have a lot of Marian, you know, themes and quotes and stuff like that. So. And then I would just pray, and I would find something beautiful that would be perfect for that page. You know, so that's how God works.
Well, I looked. I'm not going to say what my birthday is, but I looked at my birthday just to see what it is, and I thought the ponder was love begins at home, love lies in homes, and that is why there is so much suffering, so much unhappiness in the world. And then offer one way to begin to open your family to a greater depth of love is around the dinner table. And I'd have to say that as a couple, my wife and I, who came out of marriage encounter, you know, I find that particularly prescient and very, very true. I wish I lived it out better than I do, but I think it's so true that, you know, you talk about the mom being the heart of the family, and that God is really at the center of your marriage and those relationships, and that it all starts there, and that your evangelization is each other, and then the kids, and then you worry about everybody else outside of
exactly. And like Mother Teresa said, love begins at home. And I encourage, you know, families to reclaim that dinner table, reclaim the Sunday of being together. And so I weave all of those messages throughout this book, and suggest to the parents, to the mom, you know, at the dinner table tonight, speak about Saint, you know, Francis de Sales, because today's his feast day, and or have one of the older children look up something about one of their favorite saints. So I'm trying to get them to do things and to learn more about their faith as the mom is going through this too.
Right, and what's great with that too is when a mom is the first teacher, really.
Yes, first.
And we all know, science has shown us that it is that period of time, those first 10 years, let's say at the most, when really peoples are shaped, who they are and what they believe and what they think. And I think it's so important that we inculcate the faith at that point in time, because there's going to be tough times ahead.
Right.
And even if there's some rockiness and people stray a little bit and get cast onto the rocks of society, there's that foundation to pull them back, which many times it does when they start to realize the world's promises didn't really work out so well.
Right.
And you get married and you have a kid and you start thinking about eternity again, and suddenly you start thinking about, what do you really believe, right?
And when you have that child, then all of a sudden you start thinking about maybe baptizing that child. That happens quite often.
Well, a child is the only miraculous thing you're going to take part of in your life, in my mind. I mean, that's the most godlike thing you actually do, which is to create a child that God then imbues with a soul. But
that's right.
Okay, we're talking here about Catholic Moms Cafe and a wonderful mini-series we'll look forward to. There's another book, Rooted in Love, on calling as Catholic women. So let's talk about this book. Where did this one? Somebody wrote a very nice thing here. Donna-Marie Cooper O'Boyle has the great ability to speak and spiritually connect with the hearts of her readers. Doug Keck. Did you make that quote up, or did I actually tell you that one?
Thank you. No, you told me that one.
It's very, very true. And
thank you.
So we're talking about this book. So what was the genesis of this particular book?
Did you see that in addition to my children, I dedicate every book to all my children.
Right.
And in this one, at the very end, I added my sister, too, because she died while I was writing this book.
Oh, really? Okay. Okay, right. And that's...
my sister Barbara.
Barbara, who just called. I remember that, right? I remember when your sister was ill. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So she's looking down on us now.
How did that, or did it impact you when you were doing this book?
Well, it was right at the very end. You know, I had written the book. She knew about it, and it was like when it was going off to print. And I thought, I want to get that right in the dedication. And this is for Catholic women. I just want to dedicate it also to my sister.
Right. And had your work and writings impacted your sister's faith walk?
Well, I'm not sure. I just pray it impacts, whoever reads it or whoever knows. I mean, her faith, it impacted me.
Yeah.
Right. As she was dying, she was telling me to make sure I take care of myself. As I was trying to take care of her, she goes, make sure you eat.
Right. Well, I heard somebody recently talk about the idea that to some degree, once one realizes this world is over one way or the other, in a lot of ways it frees them. And then they start to think about the people who are going to be left behind.
Yeah.
Right. So it's interesting. Now, in the introduction here, and this is right in the money, all is vanity except knowing, loving, and serving God. This alone can bring peace to my soul. And that's St. Catherine Marie Drexel.
Yes.
And where'd you get that one? Why'd you decide to start the introduction with that?
Again, I prayed, and I just thought it would be very appropriate to have that message right at the beginning of the book.
Right. Now, you say today's Catholic women need not feel alone or discouraged. Do they feel alone and discouraged?
Yeah, sure. They've got everything. They're barraged with an onslaught of messages from the world, from even other Catholics and other Christians. Maybe they feel they have to keep up with them, with the number of children they have, or with the number of committees they've joined, or so there's always something to worry about.
It's interesting you say that, because in a way it can go either way. One can be something where someone's not doing anything,
right?
And on the other side, somebody can be so involved with their faith, their church, and stuff like that, and feel like they're adding on these other things, and maybe that's too much. You have to be there's a balance. You talk about it in the book.
Because if you get too crazy into everything else, thinking you need to do this, as Mother Teresa would say, you're neglecting your own.
We have a story in the book, I think, where Mother Teresa came out of the bathroom and was beaming, right?
Yes.
And said, and they said, well, why are you so happy? And she said, well, one of our sisters obviously loves this. It's so clean. She loves her work.
She loves the Lord.
Right, right.
And so the message there is that even while we're cleaning the toilets, everything, if we offer to God first thing in the morning, Lord, my day is yours. I offer you my prayers, works, joys, and sufferings of this day. So whatever we do, we're praying. We make our life a prayer. So the simplest and the most unpleasant tasks, really. Right. And everything, and the disagreements and things that happen in the home, we treat with forgiveness and tenderness, but those are all opportunities for grace.
Right. You say, how do we enrich our church and fulfill our womanly vocation to holiness? And then you go, I feel quite certain that I learned the answer to these seemingly unapproachable questions in first grade. Were you skipping grades or something, or how did you figure this out? What was the answer that you said you understood in first grade?
Because the sisters taught us, right out of the Baltimore Catechism, that to know, love, and serve our Lord is what we need to do, and we forget about that because we're just so busy.
Right.
And if we can just simply strive to live our life, to know, to love, and to serve Him. So at the end of each chapter, I have a little piece on to know Him, to love Him, and to serve Him.
I noticed that. You did.
Yeah, so that we can, just suggestions of how we can, do that.
You say, I ultimately know the pain of divorce and what it's like to be a single mother for many years. I've been falsely accused. I've lost 3 babies to miscarriage. I've been physically assaulted more than once. You had your son, some issues you talk about, being falsely accused of something or arrested.
Right.
He almost started surgery. I suffered with serious illness. Well, did you tell us this so we feel bad for you? Why did you tell us this?
Okay, well, originally that was in a further chapter in the book about struggles. The publisher thought, why don't we take that part, stick it in the introduction, so when the person is reading about all these wonderful things about being a Catholic woman,
right,
they'll also see that, wait a minute, this woman here, she had some suffering in her life too, so maybe she knows something about what she's talking about. Maybe she could share with you these things to offer you hope, and then so you'll feel that you can get through it too.
Well, I think that it's very important, as people would see with Mother Angelica. You could listen to Mother, but you knew about Mother's background from Raymond's book and her struggles and her health and her asthma and everything else, all those injuries, her back and everything else. And you realize that, while you're sitting there going, oh, that must be nice to be a cloistered sister and just talk about the Bible all day. But you realize the reality is nobody's life is really that easy. We all have our own crosses.
People always think that, if I, a busy mother thinks, if I could only just be in the cloister.
The grass is always greener.
But in the cloister, if we read about all of the saints, we see what kind of troubles they had.
Now you said, I treasure the simple yet profound words from a beloved woman, of course beloved here, St. Clare of Assisi, who said, love God, serve God, everything is in that.
Exactly.
So the question, I guess, for a mother is understanding, I hear you say that, well, how do I do that?
Just give it to God first thing in the morning, and then pray that your life is a prayer. So as you're changing that diaper, or making dinner, or going off to your part-time job, whatever it is to take care of the family, guiding those older kids, in the family who may be having some trouble, all of those things, when we give them to God in prayer, are serving our Lord. And our Lord is only calling us to do our vocation. He's not saying run to Calcutta and feed the poor there. He's saying, I put you in this family to take care of these children. Do it with love. And that's your ticket to heaven. Right,
and the same idea on one level, there's nothing wrong at times where we do things when we don't want to do them. It's called sacrifice.
Exactly.
And if, no one wants to necessarily get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and take care of a crying child. Ultimately, yes, but when you're tired and everything.
Yeah, it's hard.
But you make sacrifices. And that's a good thing, because that's how we grow, though the world sees that negatively.
Exactly. Yeah, because everything's supposed to be easy, and you're not supposed to, shouldn't be any sacrifice. You should just keep pampering yourself, and you should buy everything imaginable to give yourself that pampered life. But that's not what God is calling us to do.
Now, you talk about in the book, and you mentioned that you talk often about Blessed Teresa of Calcutta, and you also talk about the Jesuit scholar, servant of God, John A. Hardin, S.J. Now, Father Hardin was involved with the early startup of EWTN way back when. What's your connection to Father Hardin?
Well, by the grace of God, nothing I deserved, he came into my life. I was his friend, and he was my spiritual director for a number of years. He even directed Mother Teresa. And it was really Father Hardin who ended up introducing me to Mother Teresa. So one saint led me to another, and then he became my daughter Mary Catherine's godfather too.
Oh, really?
So I beseech him, I ask him many times a day for his intercession.
Right. Another one you talk about here is the servant of God, Archbishop Fulton Sheen, who, coming from New York, I have a great love for him as well. And there's a quote you have here, and I'll jump. It says, when a man loves a woman, he has to become worthy of her. And then it jumps down to the history of civilization can actually be written in terms of the level of its women.
Right. Because if we lower ourselves to,
And that's what's really, unfortunately, has happened.
Exactly.
And you talk about it in the book, and in many ways, by doing it, women have freed men to be even worse.
Exactly. So it's our fault. Sometimes we don't know what we're doing, and it's, but we have to raise the level.
Right, exactly. And again, we're not blaming anybody particularly for that, of course, but we have to realize that the idea of taking bad behavior and saying because I can't get to do it,
Right.
I get to do it as well is a good thing. And it
Yeah.
doesn't work out. You know,
No.
two wrongs don't make a right.
Exactly.
Okay, we're just about out of time, and my understanding, you've got like 16 books, and you got a whole bunch of books coming out, right?
Yeah, well, all by the grace of God, He keeps me busy, and He keeps putting that desire in my heart to help mothers and women and families.
All right,
So-
that's great. So keep it up, and we'll
Thank
look
you.
forward to your series. Good luck with your
Thank
work.
you so
Your
much,
book.
Doug.
Great to see you again.
Thank
Speaking
you.
here with Donna-Marie Cooper O'Boyle about her two books, Catholic Moms Cafe, and that's published by our Sunday Visitor, and Rooted in Love, published by Ave Maria Press. Both available through the EWTN Religious Catalog. Check them out. Check us out next time right here on EWTN's Bookmark. Thanks for being with us.